Hey everybody, coming on here today to talk to you about teaching like a peace walker. This is kind of my personal journey through this program called PeaceWalker Project, and I wanted to share this with you guys. I'm Rob Barrett. I'm a high school life science teacher. I'm also an assistant instructor at the Ronin Martial Arts Academy in Walker. So this thing called PeaceWalker Project, it's all about empowering people to become better protectors, and they do that through a three-tiered approach here where they try to develop your verbal communication skills, your leadership development, and then also your physical defensive tactics. The founder of this program is Craig Gray. He's a speaker, a trainer, and a subject matter expert. Craig has worked with military, law enforcement, and civilians for a number of years now. And over the course of his lifetime, he's got over 40 years of martial arts experience, including black belts in different arts, including Krav Maga. Before we get into this week's tips and tricks, we are going to get into the mindset and methodology of the PeaceWalker Project. So the PeaceWalker Project, I think, can be summarized in two very powerful quotes. The first one is the Warrior's Creed. And it goes something like this: wherever I walk, everyone is a little bit safer because I am there. Wherever I am, anyone in need has a friend. And whenever I return home, everyone is happy I'm there. This quote was given to us by Dr. Robert Humphrey. He was an Iwo Jima Marine and commander. He was a law professor and a cross-cultural conflict resolution specialist during the Cold War. So it was his job to try to go into foreign countries and reduce what at the time was called ugly Americanism. They did not have a super great perception of us because, well, they were all about what we were trying to do in all corners of the world. So it was his job to come in and try and spread peace. Now, the Peace Walker's approach, this is Craig's baby here, and the Peace Walker approach is to train in multiple ways. So you train your mind like a general, your mouth like a diplomat, heart like a protector, body like a soldier. And the idea is that if you do this regularly, it'll help support this Warrior's Creed so that this is true. It's something that you can say about yourself, at least more often than not. All right, so what's my goal with this? This whole experience for me, I want to share what I've learned through the PeaceWalker Project, and I'm hoping that doing that will inspire other people, especially educators out there, to join in with the project and try to make themselves into better protectors across the board, with the end goal in mind of just creating better lives for us all. I've seen a better life through this PeaceWalker community. I want to spread that, and selfishly, I want to be surrounded by people who are better protectors. So in this series, I'm talking about teaching like a peace walker. And again, here's Craig's schema of training your mind, your mouth, your body, and your heart. This week is the third week here, and we're going to be talking again about training your mind like a general, so you're thinking strategically. So here is the problem from the teacher's perspective. As a teacher, you have thousands of decisions that you've got to make each day, and every decision you make is going to affect a number of people's lives. So for instance, you're going to have to decide which content you're going to teach, which soft skills like communication, conflict management, cooperation, all that kind of stuff, and then which technical skills that are kind of unique to your discipline. You're going to have to decide which ones to teach, which ones to let go. You're also going to have to decide which laws and rules that you're going to enforce. And you've got these being handed down to you from multiple agencies. You've got the U.S., you've got the state you're in, the district, your administrators, and your staff, as well as your own. So there's a lot expected of you. You're going to have to sort through and figure out which ones are worth enforcing and how you're going to do that. And then, of course, there are conflicts. Anytime that you're working with people, you're going to run into conflict, and that's not necessarily a bad thing as long as you manage it well. So when it comes to conflict, you're going to have to choose which battles to fight and how you're going to fight them. And this comes in a number of different flavors. Of course, for all these things, you also have to decide, why are you going to do this? How are you going to do it? When are you going to do this? Are you going to do this alone or in teams? And then what are the impacts, the possible implications downstream? Because what you do is going to affect a lot of other people. So the bottom line question here is, if you've got these thousands of decisions, how can you prepare to make the right calls? From the PeaceWalker Project, I just want to share some of the things that I've learned that I think can help teachers right off the bat, and also encourage them to join this community and train. So when it comes down to it, if you want to make better decisions, you need to train, and you need to do this in the right way. What do I mean by this? Well, when we're looking at training in broad perspectives, that means you need to find mentors and partners. Not only just some random person, but you need to find people who have the right ethic, meaning that they're in it to get the most good, least harm for everybody. And then they also need to be doing the right practices, meaning that they're teaching you things that are aligned with that ethic. They're coming at it with a growth mindset. What they're teaching you is practical, it's effective, it's sustainable, and it's timely. You might not have 12 years to train in something. You want to be able to get in there and use something tomorrow and then continue to develop that over a lifetime. Beyond finding these folks, it's on you to practice your responses. You need to practice your physical and your verbal responses under pressure in a safe environment. I can't tell you how many times I have found this to be a huge asset to me. Yeah, it's uncomfortable sometimes to practice this stuff on your own or in groups, but nothing else makes a bigger impact. I'll tell you what I'm talking about. When you go to practice your responses during times of stress, when you have people who are in it to help you grow, it's going to help you discern true threats from false ones. It's really easy to get mixed up when conflict hits you. It's also going to help you maintain your baseline, meaning you're going to be better at staying cool under fire. And it's going to improve your skills under duress. So it's easy to be a peaceful person when things are going well and nobody is jazzed up emotionally. You need to train under adverse circumstances, or else your training just isn't going to pay off. And then, of course, you'll also gain confidence in your abilities. Last thing that you need to do in all parts of life, but especially in this, is reflect. So see what you're getting out of your training, what you need to do next, and why you're doing it. Now let's bring it back to teaching and take a look at those kind of 3 arenas of decisions that you got to make. And remember, this week we're focusing on training your mind like a general. So I want to get into some kind of practical, tactical tips that have helped me out that might help you out too. So when you're looking at this decision, which content, soft, and technical skills to teach, first tip I've got for you is, of course, to prioritize. And when it comes to this, take a look at your kids' basic needs. Are they being met? So do your kids have things going on in their life that are actually threatening their safety? That needs to be addressed first. Beyond that, you should look at developing your kids' interpersonal skills, then their academic skills, then your specific content. For some people, this is a frame shift. You're not showing up in that classroom just to teach biology. You got to start with basic needs and work your way down. If you disagree with that, I'm sorry, but I would invite you to leave the job. Next, I would say get a pulse. So look for and address red flags in your classroom. This could come in the form of behavior changes, verbals, nonverbals, word of mouth, things that they have written to you or to other people. So try to keep a pulse on your kids. And then set them up for success. Play to their strengths. Get to know them and figure out how you can make it so that they succeed and they're partly the experts, but also willing and eager to grow. Throughout everything that you're doing in that classroom, make sure to also promote teamwork, unity, and self-reliance. You want these guys to become independent thinkers and allies, ultimately. And then, yeah, at the end of the day, you've got to protect yourself too. You can't help these kids if you're not there. I don't just mean physically. I mean also if you are tasked with doing a specific job, let's say administering the SAT test, you should probably do that so that you keep your job. If we take a look at these things, they meet the bottom line of being ethical, and they also inspire allies, bringing us back to that idea of training our mind like a general. So think tactically about this. Set yourself up for success. Okay, moving on to this next one, which laws and rules to enforce and how. This is one that I think warrants a much deeper conversation than we can give it here, but this will at least be a start. So when you're stepping into your classroom, of course you have to prioritize safety. Generally, I think we could agree that physical safety is probably the most important, then mental and emotional, then academic, and way at the bottom is your ego. It's easy to say this. It's also very easy for us to lose track of that. Okay, this next one, I think you need to use rules in context. As in, if you're going to tell a kid that something is a rule, you should probably also have a pretty good reason for it being a rule. So it might sound something like this. The rule is we are doing this right now. It's going to help protect us or help us learn by this. If your reason for something doesn't really align with the ethic, you should be questioning if this rule should be enforced or if it needs to be a rule at all. In your classroom, you also need to empower students. Give them voice, give them choice when it comes to enforcing these rules. Beyond that, you also need to make sure that you're enforcing them consistently and respectfully in a way that backs up this ethic of most good, least harm. Another thing to keep in mind is when you're enforcing any kind of rule or expectation, your actions and your tone are going to mean probably a lot more than the words you're actually saying. So be mindful of that. Make sure you're coming across respectful. Something else to consider that makes this balance a little trickier, when you're working with colleagues, you're not always going to agree on what is the most good, the least harm for all people involved. So at times you're going to have to balance that out and try to look for team success, which is much greater, much more important than individual success. Hard to do, but also important. Again, all these things come back to ethics and inspiring allies. Okay, the last one. This is where the PeaceWalker Project really kind of had its roots, is looking at conflict and deciding not only which battles to fight, but how you're going to fight them. First question you got to ask yourself when you see a conflict, is this actually worth fighting? So it's going to come down to what you actually think at the end of the day. What are you going to be able to live with? Can you walk away, or do you need to handle this thing? Ask yourselves what are the important outcomes? What are the possible ramifications for everybody involved? If you jump into this thing, what could the outcome be for you? What could it be for the people involved? So let's say that you've decided that a conflict is yours, it's your responsibility, and you're going to handle it. If you're entering it, make sure that you're being preemptive. So prevent unnecessary or unproductive conflict to begin with. And then throughout the entire scenario, make sure you're keeping your eyes on the prize. Most good, least harm for all. I would really recommend stating that during the conflict. Reframe things. Say like, all right, guys, we all know that what we want here is this. And then explain to them what it's going to look like for the most good, least harm. Beyond that, thinking about training yourself like a general, set yourself up to win. That means that you've got to control the battlefield, control where this whole thing is going down, control the parties, who is going to be involved, control the timing. Are you going to do this at the beginning of the day, the end of the day, in the middle? What are you going to do? And then also the rules of engagement, meaning how you are going to act. So you got to think about this stuff ahead of time and try to train it as a habit. Beyond that, use your tools tactically. Presence, tone, listening to them, portraying empathy, and then also just how you're physically acting. They need to feel that you genuinely care about the outcome of most good, least harm for them and for yourself. And then prepare. So position yourself strategically and be ready for physical or verbal attacks if it comes to that. All right, let's get into a training exercise and wrap this up. So here's one way that you can start working toward this idea of being a better protector when it comes to these different types of conflicts and decisions. So I want you to think through, pick one common conflict that you encounter in your day-to-day life, as a teacher or just as a person. Now, focusing on just what you can control, go through these three questions. What could most good, least harm for everybody look like in this context? How can you set yourself up to inspire cooperation amongst the parties involved? And then what is plan B? In other words, what are you going to do when it doesn't go well? This exercise is a common one that Craig will have people do in PeaceWalker, and I found it to be very powerful in setting yourself up for success. Then, of course, reflect and re-strategize if needed. Putting my money where my mouth is, here is one that I've run through. So a student constantly talking during class. Focusing on what I can control, I remind myself and the student that I'm focused on the most good, least harm for everybody. In this case, I get to teach, he or she gets to talk when appropriate. If they're talking, they're probably trying to fill a need, a social need. So I want to meet that need and my own. I also want to inspire cooperation. So in this case, maybe I invite that student to co-plan. Hey, let's teach this together, or I'm going to teach this section. I'd like you to teach the next section, or let's try out this next one together. Or it could just be, I'm going to teach this section. You're going to have an opportunity to talk in a little bit. Then I've got a plan B. So plan B in this case might be warnings, private conversations, temporary removal, conference with parents, etc. I've got plenty of tools in the tool bag. I just have to remember that if they don't do what I have asked them to do, then I'm going to go through those next steps. Then at the end of the day, I've got to reflect, re-strategize if needed, and move along. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but the gist, we've been talking about how to make better decisions when you're under fire, so to speak. Okay, just to summarize, you need to let the ethic of most good, least harm for all drive your decisions. Think about your decisions. Think about content, the rules, conflict, strategically set yourself up for success. Make sure that you're inspiring allies instead of enemies. Use your tools to your advantage. And then train with other protectors so that you can be more clear on the ethic and more effective in your approach. It also keeps you safer because it gives you a community where you can practice this stuff. Again, this is all things that I've gained from this PeaceWalker project. This is powerful stuff. Okay, if you're looking to get involved in the PeaceWalker project, here are several different opportunities. I'll try to include these links in here too. So you could follow the PeaceWalker project on Facebook or PeaceWalker1 on Instagram. That's Craig Gray's Instagram profile there. Or of course, join or attend peacewalker.net. Right now it's just previews. Memberships will open up again in the fall. But they have so much cool stuff on there. Hundreds of hours of training materials, Protector Summit, that'll be online this fall. That's free to anyone, members or not. So more details to come on that. Or stop on down at the Ronin Martial Arts Academy. That's in Walker. If you come to classes there, we cover defensive tactics, leadership, conflict communication training. Craig has classes and seminars running at least once classes 3 times a week, seminars at least once a month. So plenty of cool opportunities. I want to thank you for coming on and sticking through this presentation here. Go out there, and I hope you have a great day and a happy life.